The topic I want to introduce to you today is not a criminal case, nor is it an accident. As the title suggests, we will unveil the secrets of a strange house in Japan. Specifically, on October 12, 2020, a post appeared on Japanese social media. The author mentioned knowing an acquaintance, let's call him Mr. Y, when Mr. Y had saved enough money and was about to finalize the house purchase. He noticed something odd about the blueprint and sent a photo of the design to an architect. The architect's reasoning then became a big question mark regarding the house's peculiar structure, which was difficult to understand. It raised hypotheses that something was not right and extremely terrifying. What is it about the house? Why can a residence instill such fear in its future occupants? As you may know, the cost of renting in Tokyo, Japan is famously expensive, to the point where many young working people only dare to rent and live in an apartment of just 9 square meters. The rental prices are headache-inducing, and the cost to buy a house is even more staggeringly high. It's so expensive that an office worker earning about 4.6 million yen a year would have to live without spending a single yen, saving all that money for 13 years straight, only to afford a condominium. It sounds long and extremely difficult. Therefore, if Japanese people want to buy a house, they must consider 2 steps. First, they must take out loans to own their house and then repay the debt gradually. Second, they buy cheaper houses to keep the debt as low as possible. Around the year 2017, Mr. Y, a 30-year-old Japanese husband with a regular office job in Tokyo, harbored the dream of buying his own house to build a cozy home. He wanted to live in Tokyo for convenience in commuting to work, and later, for a more comfortable life. However, with the prices in Tokyo, he was still very hesitant and dared not make a purchase decision. In September 2019, when he unexpectedly heard that his wife was pregnant with their first child, Mr. Y thought that if there was a time to decide on buying a house, it was now. The desire to buy a house grew stronger, prompting Mr. Y to gather all the profits from previous small investments in search of a home. With various connections, Mr. Y began his search for real estate. Of course, among the criteria for choosing a house, an affordable price was the top priority. After a short period, Mr. Y quickly found a house in a good location with a reasonable price, within the budget he had. Not to mention, it was a detached house. A detached house, including the plot of land it is built on, has the potential for stable price appreciation over time, making it a safe real estate segment for long-term living. Having both a house and land in Tokyo, fitting the budget Mr. Y had prepared, everything was exactly as he had planned. Moreover, the house had 2 floors, was built in a quiet residential area, near a train station, and there was a park nearby. The conditions were extremely ideal for a family with young children. Did Mr. Y immediately decide to buy it then? Not yet. Due to his cautious nature, Mr. Y and his wife immediately went to see the house and check it carefully, wondering why such a good house was being sold so cheaply. Initially, upon inspecting, they did not find any problems. On the contrary, they discovered many more advantages. First, the house had only been built a few years ago, so there were no signs of deterioration or need for repairs. Second, the house had many windows, allowing for excellent natural light. Mr. Y and his wife were once again very pleased with this house. So, did Mr. Y decide to buy it this time? Still not. Even though he thought he was lucky to find a house he liked at a price cheaper than the market, the value of this house, after all, was still quite large for Mr. Y and his wife. Buying a house might only happen once in a lifetime, so being extra careful and checking one more time was not excessive. Mr. Y carefully reviewed the house's blueprint for one last check. However, something strange caught his eye at this moment. The photo you are looking at is the floor plan for the first and second floors of the house. Do you notice anything unusual here? First, let's look at the first floor's layout. We can immediately see a sealed space between the kitchen and living room, surrounded by 4 walls. It's strange because it's completely sealed with no door, meaning you cannot enter or store anything inside. So, what was it built for? Mr. Y also found it puzzling and asked the real estate agent about this space, but got the answer that they did not know. even though the agent also explained that this sealed space did not cause any inconvenience when using the house. However, since this could be the biggest asset Mr. Y would own, he could not shake off the uneasy feeling. To resolve this issue, Mr. Y started seeking advice from his acquaintances. Among them, he was introduced to Mr. K, an architect. After examining the house's floor plan, the architect guessed that the original homeowner might have intended to create a storage space in this sealed area. Because just by installing a set of doors, you could use it as a storage space. If a door opens from the bedroom, it could be a wardrobe. If from the kitchen, it could be a place to keep kitchenware. But it seems for some reason, the homeowner changed their mind or could not install the doors due to lack of funds, ultimately creating this mysterious space. This guess seemed reasonable. Having heard a satisfactory explanation, did Mr. Y finally decide to buy the house? Not yet, because at this time, after some investigation, through the real estate agent, Mr. Y heard information about the house's original builder. Specifically, when the family that built the house moved out, more was learned about them. Specifically, it was a man also around 30 years old, living with his wife and one child. The largest room on the second floor's layout was used as the child's room. Mr. Y immediately shared this story with the architect to further ensure that everything in the house's design was alright. However, after hearing this story, architect Mr. K made a completely surprising remark. That is, the strangest thing about this house is the room intended for the child on the second floor. First, looking at the second floor's layout, to enter the child's room, one must go up the stairs from the first floor, through a corridor on the second floor. This process involves passing through a total of 3 doors. Clearly, this is a rather unusual arrangement. For the room considered the largest on the second floor, is it necessary to design such an inconvenient path? Second, another oddity is the absence of windows in the child's room. There's no natural light entering the room. Usually, if a room lacks windows, the bathroom should have one, at least a ventilation window. But upon closer inspection, the bathroom in the child's room, aside from a toilet and an entrance door, has nothing else. Looking at it broadly, it's easy to see that the child's room is surrounded by other spaces and is completely sealed off, resembling a solitary confinement cell in a prison. It feels like the child in this room would be completely cut off from the outside world. Why would they design their child's room in this way? Looking at the blueprint, architect Mr. K cautiously speculated that maybe the parents didn't want anyone to see their child? Third, upon another look, we see that the parents' bedroom is located on the far left of the second floor. It has an open structure, completely opposite to the child's room. If the child's room is blocked by double doors, consecutive doors, and lacks windows, etc., the parents' room has a very large desk and many windows. 5 windows appear in every nook and cranny. Bedroom, dressing room, bathroom, etc. Not to mention, if you pay a bit more attention, you'll see the bedroom is also connected to the dressing room. With no doors in between, it feels like one very spacious room. Or, fourth, there's a noteworthy space on the second floor. Look, there's a separate bathtub room on the right side of the second floor. Japan has long been known as a country with meticulous, careful, and detailed-oriented culture. In Japan, the bathroom is built separately from the toilet. Even if it's a super small apartment of only about 20 square meters, Japanese people still want to build these 2 rooms separately for cleanliness. But isn't it strange that in this house, besides the bathroom and toilet being separate, the bathtub room is also placed in another room but located in a rather isolated corner on the right? Moreover, this bathtub room also does not have any windows. The situation is identical to the child's room. So, what was the homeowner's intention when constructing a bathtub room with such a peculiar, sealed structure? For privacy, we could draw curtains, right? Could it simply be a preference? Setting aside the bathtub room, architect Mr. K was still curious about the mysterious space on the first floor and wondered if it was related to the space on the second floor. Therefore, he tried overlaying the second floor's layout onto the first floor's layout vertically and discovered something even stranger that he hadn't noticed at first. When overlaying the second floor's blueprint onto the first, we see that the sealed empty space on the first floor, which we were curious about from the start, is now directly beneath the roots of the two rooms on the second floor, the child's room and the bathtub room. Does this explain any suspicions? Suddenly, Mr. K remembered seeing a shelf in the corner of the child's room. Could it be that the location of that shelf is a corridor used as a passage leading down, then forming a hollow space tube below connecting the child's room with the bathtub room? The child could move from their room on the second floor to the sealed empty space on the first floor through a secret passage and then up to the bathtub room also on the second floor. But why make it so complicated? There must be a reason. Perhaps to avoid the child going through the stairs on the second floor, where there are windows. If this hypothesis is correct, it feels as though when the first owner built this house, they truly planned to hide the child's existence from the outside world completely. However, another question arises here. If they wanted to hide their child that meticulously, they could have built a bathroom inside the child's bedroom. Why choose such a difficult and complex method? Or did their child have a special reason that required using the outside bathroom? Now, another hypothesis emerges. Architect Mr. K, after analyzing the house's layout, proposed a possibility that is very frightening but also incredibly logical. Before I present this hypothesis, let's take a moment to review the first floor's layout of the house. First, there's a room on the first floor with a single bed used for guests. If there's a dedicated guest room, it seems guests frequently visit this house. Additionally, the dining room appears spacious for a Japanese house. Therefore, it seems like the homeowners enjoy hosting, eating, and drinking gatherings. The hypothesis is a bit eerie, but clearly, according to this arrangement, the story could have unfolded like this. While the guests were being entertained with food and drinks, the child was locked in a room on the second floor. Then, after the party, the couple naturally suggested that they have a room for guests, so please stay here tonight. Following the homeowner's directions, the guest goes up to the peculiar bathtub room on the second floor and enjoys soaking in warm water. At that moment, the child from their room, which lacks any windows, receives a signal from their parents. Then, it silently follows the secret passage from the right shelf down to the sealed empty space on the first floor, then up to the bathtub room on the second floor. If a gruesome murder occurred there, the invited guest would have no chance to defend themselves due to the surprise. And of course, there would be no witnesses because the room lacks windows. According to this hypothesis, this house may not be a normal residence but a place for a hired killing organization. But even so, another question arises. How would they dispose of the body after the murder? Architect Mr. K pointed out another shelf on the left side also in the child's room. It looked odd and unsettling. Once again, he overlaid the design of the second floor onto the first and discovered that the left shelf on the second floor aligns precisely with the storeroom on the first floor. At this point, it's hard not to think that there also exists a secret passage under that shelf. So, in conclusion, there's an answer for the body disposal if a murder occurred in this house. The murder would be carried out in the bathtub room on the second floor, then the victim's body would be moved down through the secret passage on the first floor, then moved up to the right shelf on the second floor and brought into the child's room. Continuing, from the left shelf on the second floor, they would move the body down another secret passage and stop the body transport process at the storeroom on the first floor. This storeroom connects to the garage, so if a car is prepared beforehand, the victim's body just needs to be smoothly moved down to the storeroom. Transferring the victim's body to the car to dispose of it secretly is easy without anyone knowing. But if thought through more carefully, there's really a part not satisfactorily explained by this reasoning. The secret passage that architect Mr. K pointed out is only 45 centimeters wide. It's narrow, too narrow for an adult to move through normally. But there's still a way. The murderers might have dismembered the victim in the bathtub, then instructed their small-bodied child to go down that narrow path to transport pieces of the body from the bathtub to the child's room on the second floor and continue from the child's room down to the storeroom on the first floor. If this is true, it's truly horrific. But why choose such a complicated method? Clearly, if they just wanted to murder someone in this house without being seen, they could simply draw the curtains. At this point, architect Mr. K pointed out, this is a psychological trick. Indeed, people often cover up or hide everything when they are doing something they don't want others to see. But sometimes, people are even more eager to prove their innocence. Noticeably, in this house, except for the room where the murder occurs, all other locations have many windows. Even the kitchen has 3 windows. It's a very open space, as if they want people to see it. And people would think that it's difficult for a murder to occur in a house as airy and window-filled as this. But, another question arises. If they built a bathroom directly above the storeroom or their garage, it would have been easier to move the body down. So why use a complicated method like relying on a child to transport the body through their room? Why make it difficult for themselves? Once again, architect Mr. K astutely noted that if the crime scene, namely the bathtub room, was too close to the main entrance, the perpetrator might feel anxious about the risk of exposure due to noise or something similar. Therefore, they had no choice but to construct the bathtub room, meaning the murder scene, in the corner of the upper floor, the furthest place from the street. Although this is just a hypothesis surrounding the layout of the house, and even though Mr. Y and his wife really liked the house, with such a strange structure, Mr. Y couldn't decide to live there. Eventually, he gave up on buying the house. And it was known that shortly after, Mr. Y read in the news that a murder had occurred near the 2-story house he almost bought. Hello, Mr. Y speaking. Ah, Mr. Y, long time no see. Actually, I just had a talk with architect Mr. K. It made me a bit amused, but Mr. K said that the house was... Ah, actually, I have to apologize a bit about that. I finally decided not to buy that house. Oh, why, huh? Haven't you heard the news this morning? Somehow, it seems like a dismembered body was found in the forest near that house. Well, I heard someone say the victim had visited and stayed there. I don't think it has anything to do with the case. But it's kind of gruesome, isn't it? So, I declined today. What did Mr. K say? Ah, nothing really. The conversation ended, but it seems to have opened up many previous questions because of the house's mystery. It appears that the hypotheses put forward were somewhat correct. Do you think, with a cheap house in the middle of the capital, with such a design and horrific story, you would want to buy it?